Welcome to the Power Lunch. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's good to be with you here on Wednesday morning or close to as afternoon my time. And I don't know what it is yours, but hopefully you're having a great day no matter what time it is and what part of the world you're in. Now, the point of the Power Lunch is to have today's best-selling authors, CEOs, coaches, executives, people who are doing amazing work in the world that we can learn from, that we can help us get better at what we do. Now, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, I think Twitch, and I think I'm probably missing one or two. But anyway, we monitor social media, and then we take those questions to our guests. Make sure you ask good questions. Make sure that you get the answers that you need, again, so that you can get better at what you do. If you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from these conversations. Now, today, we're going to talk about coaching, how executive coaching is going to change in a post-pandemic world. I've got Bill Zeeb. Bill is an expert. He's been coaching and teaching and working with people for over 25 years. He's a Six Sigma trainer. He's a master black belt. He's a founding partner in Infinitas. And prior to starting his own company, he was the director of the Forge Group Europe, which is today part of Accenture. Bill is also a friend, a colleague in the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches, and I consider him a thought leader in coaching. And so one of the reasons I want to have Bill on today is that I think that there's real big shifts going on in leadership and in the world and in management. And so I thought Bill was a perfect person to have on so that we could discuss that. Bill, welcome.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here and see you again, Rhett.
It is always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Man, we are going through a lot of changes. I think our worlds have been, I was listening to a phone call a few weeks ago with the CEO of Ford Motor Company. He said, that we planned for everything, but we had never planned for a complete shutdown around the world. And I just think that's, we often as leaders, we plan. I know when I ran my own company, we had all kinds of scenarios of things that could go wrong, and we had sort of a plan for those. But I don't think we could have planned for something like this. And so, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You've been coaching executives. You've coached thousands of companies and people. How is leadership changing? I mean, in your view, what do you see in the people that you're talking to right now?
I'm seeing a mix. I'm seeing some people who are able to turn off that reptile brain, that amygdala that goes into fear, and they're able to lead from their rational brain. And these leaders are more important than ever. And I'm also seeing a lot of leaders that are pulling back a little bit. They're in devastating situations with their business completely shut down. So I'm seeing a mix of that, and I think there's never been a more important time for leaders to work and use their rational brain and really try to help those around them to find more calm.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think that makes sense. So let's back up a little bit and talk about. I've talked about some of your experience. Can you talk about that a little bit and sort of your journey to coaching and how you got started? Because I think that's important, an important base to build right now about where you come from and why you where you see leadership and coaching going.
Excellent. And leadership is a topic I'm really passionate about. I've got a 25-year vision of where I want to help co-create leadership development in the future. My leadership started when I had a coach back in the early 90s. And
Okay.
I was really lucky back then. We didn't call it stakeholder-centered coaching, but I actually got feedback from my stakeholders. And it wasn't quite as structured as today, but it was really rich. And I feel really blessed for that. There's a saying, or when you ask someone when's the best time to plant a tree, the
Mm.
answer the answer is 20 years ago. And that answer is so true, because in our garden we have a cherry tree I planted a dozen years ago, and it's just bursting with cherries. The second best time to plant a tree would be when, Rhett?
10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And since we can't turn back time, the second best time to plant a tree
Now.
is today, right now. So from my perspective, for leaders today, no matter what situation they're in, I know that every leader can always measurably improve their leadership behavior. And I know that every leader always has some leadership bottlenecks. Okay.
Mm.
And so in order to work on these, we need a structured process, and we need to start and commit. And I'm kind of passionate on process improvement because I spent 25 years in Lean Six Sigma and helped companies do thousands of projects in that domain. That was very process focused. The last 5 years, I've been focusing pretty much exclusively on leadership, which is quite different than processes. However, every leader can always improve. And I would encourage leaders to take a step back and really think about, how much did you improve the last 2 months in terms of your leadership capabilities? And if the answer is I'm not sure, then that's a question you might want to ponder some more, because consistent leadership growth month after month has never been easier, more time efficient than today, and it's going to get much better.
What do you mean by, you said something that caught my attention right there. What do you mean by leadership bottlenecks?
Leadership bottlenecks are coming from my friend Marshall Goldsmith. He defined 20 ineffective habits of successful leaders. I think I've got a copy of his book here. It's probably the German version, but I coach in a few languages. But those are habits like winning too much, or starting sentences with no, but, or however, or judging or speaking when angry. And it's a very simple list. If someone sends me a note on LinkedIn, I'm happy to send you. I've got the list of 20, and it's just a one-page document. And usually when I work with leaders, I ask them to go through that list and force rank which 2 or 3 are the most relevant for them. And I remember the CEO of Best Buy, Hubert Joly, having a conversation with Marshall recently. He said, yeah, I had 13 of those. So sometimes leaders don't find they don't have any of those. And then usually the advice is, maybe you should consider looking at humility.
Ah, maybe that's the key. I don't know. So that, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, we were talking, we're hinting on leadership. How do you think, I mean, how did you, okay, so how did you get, let me start there. How did you get from Lean, Six Sigma and being a black belt and really focusing on processes to the space where, because that's important. I mean, that's important work, and that's I mean, I value that as a former sort of CEO, president of a company that was global, and we had stuff going here and there and everywhere, and processes were key. And when those broke down, things really broke down. So I mean, to me, that's fascinating work. But what led you from that to working on leadership? Because that, like you said, that's totally different. So where did that? How did you make that switch, and why?
Okay, and it's been a challenging shift. to make that move from processes, because processes is really rational and kind of telling. It's giving advice. If we think of our friend Michael Bungay-Stanier, the advice trap, his books really helped me to get away from that advice giving. And the biggest problem I always saw in Lean Six Sigma process improvement projects, the biggest problem was always leadership. And it wasn't so clear how to measure that. And the nice thing about the process that Marshall Goldsmith has developed is we can now measure that. So it's taken me several years of hard work to make the transition from telling and advising on processes to coaching leaders to help them move forward on their behavior. But it's extremely satisfying because you're really now killing two birds with one stone, if that makes sense.
Do you think that experience helps you in your coaching, having that process background?
Absolutely. And let me share with you a bit how my coaching has evolved. I started out with Belbin team role profiles. So analyzing preferred behaviors in teams and diagnosing when a team has too much or too little of a certain behavioral trait in the membership. You can actually predict if the team's going to succeed or fail. So that was my background from the Lean Six Sigma world. And Meredith Belbin, he's 94 years old. He's done some great work on that. And then when I went to the next step of stakeholder-centered coaching, that was really the next foundation. That's very much about helping leaders identify their bottlenecks and then work on those. Okay. The future, and it's very individually focused. The future of coaching, I think, is going to be quite different. I think coaching today is like the Model T Ford in 1908. It's a mass-produced product. It's good quality. It's better than anything we've ever had before. And we're so grateful for everyone who came before us to get us this far, because there's been a massive amount of great contributions done in coaching. But I believe in the next 10 years, we're going to see things like ABS and we're going to see more comfort. We're going to see different colors. We're going to see seat belts we don't even have yet. We're going to see, radios, and we don't have to crank start the car. So I believe coaching is really in its infancy today. Contracting is not clear. Is it a two-way or a three-way or a four-way? Communication in the coaching. What's the role of HR? What's the role of the CEO in the business? Or is it just a one-to-one coaching? Or how do we measure results? And individually, we're getting a little bit better. How do we measure team results? How do we understand who are all of the stakeholders of the team? So there's so much work in coaching in front of us to be more, to take coaching to a higher efficiency, a higher effectiveness, to do more coaching just in time. Let me give you another example. I'm living in France, and I'm an American. I'm speaking German, and I wanted to learn French, so I went to a language school. And I learned 100 words of French a day for a week. So at the end of the week, I could speak 700 words of French. That was pretty cool. Unfortunately, a lot of leadership development is like my French training. You can really pick things up quickly in a 1-week training, but after the training was over, I started forgetting 50 words a day. And so I'm really a big believer in coaching, frequent coaching, and not big blocks of training. Now, I have had some great experience in training, so I can't be completely coaching focused, but I think the vast majority of leadership development should be in coaching. And I'm going to say it's not so important what happens in the coaching. What's most important is what the champion and the person receiving the coaching, I always call them my champions. The most important element in coaching is what the champion does between the coaching sessions. The experiments, the tests, the new behaviors, the hypotheses they're testing to put in place these new behaviors.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. What is let's shift gears a little bit now to kind of where we are today, um, because I think you set that up perfectly on sort of your view on how where coaching is going and what to expect. But leadership in and of itself, I think with the demands, with everybody I'm talking to, with the demands that COVID has put on them to not only um, look after their teams in a different way, uh, but work is shifted, right? I mean, our whole work environment has shifted, and I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't know how it's going to shift. Is this shift temporary? Is this shift permanent? Everybody's got an opinion about that. But how do you think leadership is going to change as a result of COVID?
I think this is one of the most exciting moments to be a leader in the history of mankind.
Wow.
And as difficult as COVID is, I take the view that never in the history of mankind have we had so many people on the planet that are going to participate in such a big recovery as the one that's in front of us. And this recovery is going to cause surges in demand in many, many markets. Now, this doesn't help the people that are working for an airline or a hotel that are really, or a restaurant. And I really, in my heart, I feel for these people today. Okay, that's an excruciatingly difficult situation. What I'm seeing with many of my clients are actually the chance for great leadership to step up now and make a huge difference. Let me share with you 2 or 3 examples, okay? One example is a client I'm coaching in China, and their factory was shut down early, and the leader there, who I'm blessed to be coaching, the leader there was so foresighted that he really worked to get his team organized to come back into production quickly. And his team, and this is in a down and dirty automotive supply business, so this is nothing glamour, right? And they got their team going. They organized milk runs to go pick up people from all over China, and they found special housing, and they got the factory back up and running. And March was the most profitable month that business ever turned in. So that's one example. Another example in Switzerland, a client, they've come to recognize that their workforce can stay at home and be just as productive, maybe even more productive than before. Okay, and this opens up a whole new world for, as they're growing, they don't need more office space. They're going to be more flexible. Their employees are more flexible, and they're learning a work-life balance. And their leaders are saying, I'm actually learning to use these Zoom tools in a way that's giving me more flexibility.
Right.
So I see a lot of opportunities, and maybe my lens is a little bit rose-colored because some of my clients are up, and for those who are in a situation where you're shut down, there are going to be many, many new markets that are going to grow really fast in the next months, and to be able to shift into those markets, there are going to be some opportunities there, I believe, and it's better for the environment. I love the fact that I can coach with my clients without driving to them now, and they're totally good with it, and so am I. And even it took my wife a while, but she's even gotten used to it now.
Yeah, no, I think it opens up, for us, for people who do this kind of work. I think it opens up an opportunity to actually do more, and to help more people. And I think that's a real positive. So I had a comment that I wanted to share with you. Jonathan Becker asked Bill if he can put the books up, some of those books that you were talking about up after the show, in the chat after the show. We can list those books and links. That would be Jonathan Becker asked us if we could
Perfect.
do that.
I'm happy to share my books. I have to admit, I'm kind of a book hound. I've got probably 15 hard copy books and probably 180 books on Kindle I bought the last 2 years on leadership. So I'm happy to share my list and try and sort out the best ones. Gladly.
Excellent. Yeah, I think, particularly the ones you mentioned, I think he was curious about. So that leads me to my next question for you, Bill, is what, looking at that landscape that you just sort of laid out, how and what new skills or what things do you think coaches can help leaders with going forward? I mean, because we all know sort of the typical coaching interaction, and a lot of times it's behavior and other things. But are there new things that you think we're going to be helping leaders with going forward?
Let me reflect on that.
I mean, what I mean by is I think, just to give you a sense of what I'm thinking and why I asked the question is,
Sure.
You look at the way people are feeling nowadays, and I was talking to a CEO a couple of days ago, and he said, half my workforce doesn't want to come back, and so how do I address that, and how do I address their concerns for their safety, for their loved ones, because they're scared and they're nervous.
Right.
And I've never had to deal with people who are scared about external things, right?
Right.
And they're also probably scared about the business, but that's secondary to them being scared about safety and health and other things and financial concern,
Right.
And so I think that requires, and I've always talked about empathy, and I've always talked about, that kind of thing, but I think it's a different level now, even because you're dealing with people who've got so much going on the outside. I mean, people always have their stuff, and as a leader, you have to deal with that. And I know that all too well, having run a small business.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's at a whole nother level now, and so I think it requires some different skills from us as leaders.
You're absolutely right, and this is an area, coming from my Lean Six Sigma background, something I decided to work on last November, and this came out of some work with Peter Bregman, one of our colleagues in MG100, is I decided I wanted to lead more from my heart. Okay. And I was pretty dollars and yield and profit focused for about 25 years. Okay. And I worked with Tasha Eurich in her book Insight, and Peter Bregman a bit, and I've really been working hard personally on leading from the heart. So I got Eric Schmidt's book on Bill Campbell, The $1 Trillion Coach.
Yeah.
And 15 years ago, I would walk into a client in HR and there'd be some hugging, and I'm like, what's this all about? Okay. And so it was not comfortable at all for me in the beginning, but when I read and reread the book about Bill Campbell, I said, that really resonates with me. Coaching for the holistic business with the heart. And I actually started using the hug with all my clients, to the point where during one stakeholder briefing, one of the executives said, and Bill's my coach, and by the way, beware, he's bound to come up with some spontaneous hugs from time to time, right? So in this COVID time, you can't do that anymore, okay? But yet, this leading from the heart is like all of the other leadership behaviors. It's a skill that you can develop. Now, it's not as easy as some of the other skills, and I've had to engage some coaches myself. I have a weekly call with one of my coaches to work on leading from the heart. And this has helped me to have much more empathy than I did in the past. And I believe this type of development of empathy for leaders is going to be extremely important in the future, especially for the businesses where people have fear. And I have to say, I feel extremely proud and blessed that the clients I'm working with are stepping up and showing levels of empathy that go far beyond what I could have ever imagined as a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt 10 years ago.
How what made you realize you needed to make that shift? I mean, what was the moment? Why did you do that? But I mean, I understand why you do it now. I understand why a light bulb clicked off when the COVID virus happened, and you said, okay, I've really got to show that I truly care about people first and foremost. But you've made this shift already. What prompted that?
Great question. And our friend Tasha Eurich talks about self-awareness and how there are different trigger events. Okay. And sometimes it can be a trigger event from a loving critic, and sometimes you need more. And in my case, I kind of did a self-inflicted massive hydrogen bomb to myself. And the way that I did that is I signed up for something called Leadership Intensive with Peter Bregman. And that's a 5-day event where 18 leaders come together. And when a CEO of $1 billion company pulls me aside during that week and says, Bill, if you want to be a great coach, you need to be 100 times more self-aware. He told me that. He told me that. And my response to him was, thank you. I couldn't say more. The next morning, I went back to him. And sometimes you don't know what to say right away. And I went back to him and I said, first of all, I really want to thank you for telling me that I need to be 100 times more self-aware to be a great coach, because that's really important for me. And that was not on my radar, and you put it on my radar. Okay. And I also want to share with you that I've been working on being more self-aware for the last 3 years as a coach. I mean, I've been doing a lot of feed forward, and this is a long journey, right? We don't get self-aware. It's not a light switch, okay? It's not even a dimmer you can turn. We're talking about a lot of work. And I said to him,
an everyday effort.
It's an everyday effort, and there's a lot of days when it's really miserable. And I said to him, I said, because I've become 100 times more self-aware, I know I can do it again. And you're an amazing leader that I want to thank, because you put that on my radar. And that was kind of the aha moment with this gentleman. And I'm grateful to him to this day.
Yeah, I can understand those sort of transitional moments, or transformational moments, I should say, in our sort of our journey. So what for you in your coaching practice, what is your, I mean, your practice is really growing. What's your sort of view on how other coaches can approach their business? You and I have been talking a lot lately offline about a lot of coaches are struggling to sort of adapt to this crisis. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, I prepared a couple of pages. Let me show them. The first page, and I didn't know you were going to ask that question, but the first thing you need to do is deliver outstanding work. Okay. And when I work with my clients, I show them this growth map. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle, we have the comfort zone, and you see point one there. And then in the growth zone, we got 2 and 3. And then you got point 4 kind of on the edge of the growth zone, and 5, you got the overwhelm zone. And great leaders and great coaches ask their champions, where do you want to play? And when my champion says, I want to play on 3 or 4, I say, outstanding. However, we need to have so much trust that when I suggest something in 5, that you can say no. So if you can't tell me no instantly, we can't play there. So we need to deliver great work, okay? And the coaching map is one help. Now, here's another graph I'd like to share. And this is a map this is a triangle, a pyramid of the market for coaching, okay? So this is more for coaches, and buyers of coaches could use this as well. If you look, this is from Chet Holmes. He wrote a great book about sales, and the top part of the triangle are the people looking for coaching today. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Those are people, they know about it and they want coaching. The middle yellow is the people who are unaware that they actually deserve coaching. Okay. And at the bottom, you have the cavemen. Cavemen stands for Citizens Against Virtually Everything. So I don't have time to try and convince them. Okay. And there are people like that. Okay.
Oh yes, there are.
So here's my my take on coaching and finding coaching clients. If someone comes to me and they're looking for coaching, I'll definitely have a conversation with them, but I have a very clear vision. I don't want to coach individuals. I want to coach enterprises. I want to help teams. I want to help transform companies. So I'm not looking for a tactical coaching assignment, okay? But I'll talk to anybody about coaching if they want to have a conversation. So I'm mostly spending my time in this yellow middle, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the railroads, are you in the transportation business or the railroad business? And I believe that coaches need to spend time in this yellow, unaware that I deserve coaching. And the way that I do that is through having conversations with leaders that are bringing value to them in a coaching context over a period of 1, 3, 5, 6 months until the people in the yellow are ready to move to the green, but I'm the only guy they want to work with. Okay. And this is kind of the strategy, but it's really a laborious, tedious, long-term, requires follow-up and patience and a lot of giving before you're getting something back. But this is generally my approach. And my vision for the next 25 years is to help thousands of leaders that haven't had coaching to benefit from that, because no pro tennis player or sports person would ever work without a coach, and so many leaders are working without a coach. They're even more important than athletes today. So I view this as a big challenge for the next decades to come. And
so let me follow up on that chart. And I think that part that's a great illustration. I loved it. Made me smile. This is the last question too, so this is important. Have that conversation. Treat me like I'm in that yellow space. I need coaching. I need coaching. I don't know it yet.
yes.
But what is that conversation like? Because I think we have a lot of people on this program that watch this program.
Yes.
That are in that yellow space.
Yes. Yes.
And they must be listening to this for some reason. In their mind, they know, well, I'm intrigued by it, but I don't know how it will help me, and I don't know if I have time for it. There are a lot of excuses I'm sure we all hear, right?
Right.
How do you start that conversation with somebody? I'm fascinated by it from just as a coaching.
Excellent. And
how do you make that? I mean, how do you introduce that company?
This is my passion. This is what I want to do the next decades. And it's not about, it's about providing so much value in the first discussion that for both parties, that there's an interest to come back. So let me give you one example. Okay. And this is a company that had to lay off a lot of their workforce. So, I'm moving that yellow towards green, and then boom, COVID hits, right? And of course, the CEO asked me, how much does coaching cost? And that happens on the day he has to fire 20% of his staff. So it's not easy. To help leaders move forward, they need to learn and experience coaching. So they need to understand what are their leadership bottlenecks. So I'll have a conversation with them, and then I'll send them an email with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 documents that they can play with. 20 most commonly chosen leadership growth areas from my master coach friend, Chris Coffey. Okay. Yeah. Or Marshall's 20 ineffective habits, or I'll invite them to a Belbin team role profile. And the secret, I believe, is to make the interaction so valuable to them, but not to give them everything so that they want to come back. So when I do a Belbin, it's a 360. But the first time I offer them, I only let them do the self-assessment, and I say, let's have a call and debrief it. After the debrief, let's invite some other people. Then we got into second debrief. After that, then you can look at Marshall's things. And converting these yellows to greens requires trust. It also requires coaching the issues important to leaders. I had one leader in this yellow zone, amazing. Should I have 2 children or 3? My wife wants a 3rd child. And through the yellow zone process, he says, we decided to have a 3rd child, and we're buying a big new house. So it's about helping make a positive change in other people's lives, generally from our heart, and letting them develop the trust to work with the coach and understand the benefits that every one of us deserves. Yeah. Because like the cherry tree, the best time to start is like now.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Bill, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Rhett. It's been a huge pleasure, and you are doing such a great service with your broadcasting and with sharing the word. I'm really excited.
Well, we're going to be the last time we do this. I think we've got a lot to talk about, a lot more to talk about, and we'll have to just do that on a regular basis, my friend.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us here on the Power Lunch. Thanks for your comments today and in your engagement. I hope you're having a wonderful day that is productive, that you're staying safe and healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Power Lunch. Oh, and by the way, you can go to the website and find out the schedule. We've got there's an incredible schedule coming up in June, and the rest of this month, frankly. And so anyway, have a great day. Go to the website powerlunch.live, and we'll see you tomorrow.